discussion, sales political discussion. As you can see, it's a smaller group, but it's going to be, we were really looking at you guys up there. It's a little more relaxed and informal. So throughout, I have some questions, guys. So if you want to, anytime you have questions, just jump in and ask them.
Except for Charlie.
Yeah, except for Charlie, wait till the end.
No, I'm really.
But Lee, Biff, Jason, and Jim, welcome. If you could explain a little bit about yourselves, your background, and 3 questions I gave you. What's your position, who you represent, what made you decide to run for your current position, and then also how long have you been involved in politics?
Okay. My position is currently council president of Two Rivers and council member at large. I was elected for my current term, just 1 year long in my first year of my current term, have 2 years left. Was elected by the council as president for the last 2 years now. That's the position, a little different than Manitowoc or County Board. We're at large, so I represent at large the entire city versus a specific district. I've been doing it since around 2000. I've had a year, a couple of 1-year breaks in between, 1 by choice or 2 by choice where I took a year off, 1 by the voters' choice. I didn't return, but in totality probably since around 2000. And what made me decide to run was just involvement with a committee that I was asked to be on prior to being elected. And I can tell more on that later to start your questions, but that's how I got involved years ago, was asked to be on a citizen committee.
Okay. Jason.
Great. As you know, I'm Jason Sladke. I represent the 10th district in the city of Manitowoc, which basically, for the most part, is north of Waldo Boulevard and west of the railroad tracks by the viaduct of Federal Mall. I too am the current city council president. We do, in Manitowoc, we do 1-year terms as council president. Basically, it kind of goes on seniority. It's kind of taking your turn to be council president. So this was Alderman Hennessy and I were equal on our time to serve. So I was nominated and I served this year. So April, I'll be done with my council presidency. I first ran in 2009. I filed to run against my civics teacher from 9th grade, and who had served since, I think, 1968 in that position in the city council. I got involved just because I believed, my opinion was that I was horrified at the spending that was going on in the city. The city was living beyond our means. When we were over 70 million in debt for a city of 34,000 people, we were in trouble. So that was the biggest thing that got me, that inspired me to run. I am running again this spring in April, but I am on a hold, so I will be going into my third 2-year term. So I have had an interest in politics for some time, in most of my adult life. So it's just been something I've had an interest in as a hobby, and now it's turned a little more of a passion and a part-time job. So.
I retired as a teacher in the Manitowoc Public School District in 1999, and then I went to work at the center, teaching at the center, more or less on a part-time basis. And that's pretty much my background. The school board position is not generally considered a political position. We're not Democrats, Republicans, and we don't run that way. And our issues frequently don't have anything to do with politics. I decided to run in 2001 because Manitowoc was one of the very, very few districts in the state of Wisconsin and in the whole country country that did not have a lunch program. I was really bothered by that because, as you're well aware of the economic condition of this community, we tend to have a few more people who are at the poverty level, or just a little above the poverty level in our community. And I thought a lunch program would benefit them. And also, we have a lot of middle-class people. We have, mom and dad working, and maybe a couple of kids going off to school and getting lunches together in the morning can be quite an ordeal. You're also busy, and as a matter of convenience, it would have been nice for them to have lunch offered in our schools. And so I ran on that issue. I got elected. The board was very unresponsive at first, and that's where I learned that it's how many votes you have determines how you get stuff done. But after I was on the board for a year or so, the board came around to deciding that they would do a referendum. And the referendum was very well run, and enormous numbers of people in the community stepped forward and got organized to work on getting that passed. And it did pass, and we now have a lunch program, and we do have, it serves our community very, very well. So that's one of my biggest achievements, I think, on the board. Like you, as far as who serves as president goes, it's not on a seniority basis really, but it is sort of on a seniority basis. And it was my turn to take that position, so I took it this year. And our tradition has been sort of, if you get the position, you can hold it for 2 years, and then they want to see somebody else take over that position, which I think is a really very good idea. I serve, of course, the whole community at large. And so anybody in the district can call me about issues that they have with public schools. These people sitting to my right and left, they get paid for what they do. There are 423 school districts in the state of Wisconsin, and only about 6 of them do not pay their school board members, and Manitowoc is one of them. So the job is done because you gotta love what you're doing.
Sure. Thank you for that, Jim. And some of these questions, as you saw, are a little on the political side. So if you could put your spin on it,
Oh, sure.
Looking at it from the school board, that'd be wonderful. Good. Wonderful.
I've been doing this a long time. I started in about 1990, 91 on the city council of Manitowoc, and then decided to run for county board late in the 90s. I represent the people north of the Manitowoc River to Wall Boulevard from about North 11th to the city limits. It's a very long, narrow district. Those are the people that vote for me, but I represent the whole county, being the county board chair. So I will get concerns from my constituents within my district, but one of our issues right now, I'm getting calls from all over the county. You run for county board chair as an elected position within the county board. We've had county board chairs that have served many, many years, and we've had some that have served 2 years or 4-year terms. I'm in the middle of my first term, the second time that I've been county board chair. I was chair about the middle of 2005, 2006, and then took a new job at the school district, didn't know if I had time to do it or not, and then when I settled into that, things were going, and I decided to run again. The other thing is county board chair is not as involved as it used to be. Now that we have a county executive who is the chief elected officer of the county board chair probably has more of a role of a city council president in that you run the meetings, you organize things, as a board president would do also. Yes, you have to do certain county duties, but it's not what it used to be. In the old days, there was more importance to that position. I don't think I could do it if we were back in those days, but now with the executive, it's a different job. Why did I do this? I'm going to be very honest. The first time I ran, it was because the guy running, I didn't want to see him elected. A very good friend of mine who was the city council person in Manitowoc at that time decided not to run again, Damon Katani. And I listened to his news broadcast at lunch, and there was one guy running, and I thought, I'm not going to let him represent this district. So I ran out from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, the last day you could turn signatures in around the neighborhood, got signatures, and ran. I kind of like it. You know, there are bad days when you take a lot of heat and you take a lot of emotional concerns from people, but then there's a lot of good days where it's very fulfilling when you see things happen. So overall, it's rewarding.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue to our next question about being full-time or part-time, paid or volunteer, how long is your term, and if you're, describe your typical week, so you can move on to Jim.
Well, the functions that I have as president are pretty much what you would expect, helping to set the agenda, making sure everybody can come to a meeting if a special meeting is called, a lot of that sort of thing, making calls to members. We did have, we just hired a new superintendent of schools, and that was really quite an ordeal. We started way out there in November, and we had to have a lot of meetings in order to make that happen. This is the first time. It was not the first time I was going through the procedure, but the last superintendent, Mark Swanson, was a real easy hire for us. We knew what we wanted, and we just went ahead and did that. With Marcia, there was a lot more involved in that particular hire. So, you know, that's pretty much, I do get calls also. I don't get a lot of calls. We don't do a lot of controversial things, especially these last years. We've been holding taxes down quite a bit. We are, and I like to point this out, and everybody in Mandalay should know, we are one of the very lowest spending districts in the state of Wisconsin. And I'm told that, and of course there's a great deal of inequity in the way school districts are funded, and which of course is a political matter because we'd like to get our politicians in Madison to change that. For instance, if you are Sheboygan, every student in Sheboygan gets $1,000 more a year funding than we get. Okay, $1,000, and we got over 5,000 students. That's about $5 million we don't get, but Sheboygan gets it. And I hope you understand what I'm saying here. They just froze what the state was doing back in 1992. We were always a low spending district, so we got less money. Districts that were high spending districts, they got more money. And then of course every year after that, it's been a percentage or increase. So we have problems with that, and we deal with that. So and we can't get our legislators to really want to dig into that again. That's a very, very thorny issue.
So essentially, one of these picky sides, so essentially you were, Sheboygan was rewarded for spending.
They'd be a big spender.
Penalized for being.
Penalized for being. That's the way the system is set up.
Okay. Jason?
A typical week on city council, briefly, the city council in Manitowoc is made up of the council, and there's a committee of the whole, which includes the mayor. Then there are 6 standing committees, and each council member is assigned to 3 standing committees. The mayor makes those nominations, the council approves those. Generally, your first, so the council meets on the first and third Mondays of a month, and then there's some other committees, which I happen to sit on, streets and sanitation, which usually has quite a bit of things to deal with. We generally end up meeting on the second and fourth Monday of the month. So Mondays are generally always a meeting night, so one night a week minimum. The longer you serve, the more commissions and different things you end up on. For instance, I'm now going into my 3rd term. I also sit on the Harbor Commission, the Cemetery Commission, the Zoological Board. There's a handful that, fortunately, the Code Review Committee, there's a handful that don't meet often, but the more senior of a member on the council you are, the more responsibilities, the more time somebody gets. But on average, like this week, I have things 3 nights this week that are council related. Last week, I had 0, so it really, but every day you're reading your emails. Smartphones are a way of life, because otherwise by the time you get home, check your emails, everyone else, their employees are gone for the day, gone home, and you're playing catch up. So you do have to have a pretty cooperative employer that kind of allows you to take that time out of the day to take care of your situation. So, again, we're paid, we make $260 a month before taxes. So if you take the entire city council of Manitowoc, well, everybody, make them one employee, they're the lowest paid employee in the city of Manitowoc. Full time, but that's not why we do it. I personally would have done it had it not paid. I respect the school board for doing it the way they do it, but it's just not paying. I believe it's a public call to service. So, that's whatever that question. So,
yeah. And quickly, do you think the pay incentivizes people to run, or?
I don't think it shows up. I don't think it shows up on the radar for us.
I have heard people say they wouldn't run because, let us say, their parents would have to hire babysitters for the various meetings, and so that would be an out-of-pocket expense for them.
Okay.
That's the only thing I've ever heard negative about it.
I guess I'll preface, and what might be important is unique. You have 4 people up here with really are part of 4 different types of government. County board, school board, mayoral, council, and then Two Rivers being a city manager council form of government. What the city council in Two Rivers is a body of 9. We are the policy making board, and we rule by majority. And the city manager works at the pleasure of the city council. That is the only position that the city council hires and fires. The city manager is responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of the city. Again, we're a policy-making board. Full-time or part-time, it's as much time as any individual really wants to put into it. I've been involved a number of years. I've seen people like myself who put a lot of time and effort into the job. Literally spending 30 hours a week, if they so choose to involve themselves to that degree. I see some who have spent considerably less. And I guess that's going to be up to the individual. They should be being fair to the citizens they represent and put in good effort. It is paid. I believe my net check every month is about $104. Like Jason, I don't do it for the pay. And when I first got involved, I was actually shocked that I did receive a check. I thought it was truly volunteer. I didn't turn the check away, though, I'll be honest with you. I'll take the $104, and I don't necessarily feel guilty about taking the $104. Our terms are for 3 years. This is another unique item that I had an opportunity to do. We struggle, and that's part of why we're here tonight. We struggle to get people to involve themselves in local government, in elected office. Our terms used to be, by our city charter, 2-year terms. In 1 year, we would have 5 seats open, and then the opposite year, we'd have 4. We were having a really hard time getting people to involve themselves in running. We thought we have such a hard time getting 5 people to try to take out papers to run for office. We started discussing changing our terms to 3-year terms and then rolling in where every 3 years we have 3 positions, so it's 3, 3, 3. Thought that would bring a level of consistency, broaden the learning curve a little bit for people getting a little comfortable. And overall, it's been better, but it continues to be a struggle. As you see this year, we in Two Rivers have 3 seats open like every year, and we have 3 people running, 2 incumbents and 1 new person. So it's very frustrating to see that level of involvement. Meetings like this are crucial to get this word out. I think it's so important. We have so much in the future that's at stake, and we're just not getting enough involvement from folks. And it's not that bad. So it's that call to service, as Jason said at the beginning. Either you have it or you don't, or it's our responsibility to encourage that.
Sure.
I want to touch on a point that you made up, or you made earlier when we were talking, is that working, you have so many unique, four unique government positions right here. First off, do you take into consideration the other boards and the panels when you're making decisions, and then also how you work together with each other to move the county forward as a whole?
Sometimes we learn what not to do, you know. We do watch other entities and see some, you know, that's part of learning. You want to learn from your mistakes. So you see some decisions maybe that have been made and you say, whoa, you know, we're not going to do that. The other aspect is the opportunity, again, a night like this, or seeing each other out in the community where you talk and you do some collaboration. Each city or government entity locally has different needs and different levels of revenues to deal with. So there is some learning from each other, but there is a lot of weakness. And like schools or counties, they have different responsibilities to perform than municipalities.
Well, I wish that we would be able to work closer together. I remember my days on the city council, and I'm not saying Jason is like this or any of the other council members now, but I had no idea what happened out in rural districts of Manitowoc County. I thought I did. I thought I had an understanding. Hey, my grandpa was a farmer. I know what it's like to live out there. I had no idea. Different issues, different concerns, zoning that's completely different than it would be in the city. Real independence in thinking that sometimes in cities you don't get. So that's the biggest challenge that we face as a county board. And I've got to say I'm pretty proud of the way that our board has stayed away from city-county issues. But we all seem to be working pretty well together. I've learned some of those ideas I had were completely wrong, and I've learned to understand how people think differently from different parts of the county or just even the rural city areas. My biggest wish, I think the biggest failure government has, is that we don't work closer together. I look at the cities and the county and go, what else could we share? You know, could we combine police forces? Could we combine the county sheriff and the city of Manitowoc? Could we combine fire protection for the cities? Could we save money with the school districts, putting districts together? But sometimes I think we all live in our own little kingdoms and don't want to give up, or we're afraid to give things up. We're afraid we're going to lose that local control almost too much that we don't see a savings that all of us are benefiting from. And we're in a time where we can think differently, and I think the challenge right now, all four of the groups sitting before you, is can we sit down and find ways to spend tax money even better to combine some of the services that we provide so we don't lose services in our area because we can't afford them anymore. And I really think that's something we have to start looking at and look at seriously. That, you know, it's not Manitowoc and Two Rivers. It's 40,000 people who live along the lake in the metropolitan area that maybe could have some savings in some places. And it's 80,000 people in this county that we should be able to look at and say, how can we do this the best? Or can Manitowoc and Two Rivers school districts share some things to cut costs down? Or Valdez and Reed's are one of the different areas. Sometimes I just think we're afraid to look at that because we don't want to lose. You're still going to be special in Manitowoc and Two Rivers if you share a police department or a fire department or a school district, you know. You're still going to be your individual cities, but can we save money? Get the most for it. I don't know. Great points. Yeah.
Well, school district, of course, I think we have a lot to do with the county. We have certain things where we work with the city. For instance, you know, the utilization of parks. Citizens Park, of course, belongs to the city, but we use it for our baseball programs. And, you know, we have a lot of agreements along those lines. municipal field. When we wanted to rename that Ron Ruby Field, we went to the city. We went to the city to get everything approved. The police liaison officers are funded by, I'm not sure the exact funding, half the city, or half, a little bit more. But anyway, and that's a very, very good program for us, and it's a very good program for the city. We had some problem with the crossing guards. If you remember that, how were the crossing guards going to be paid, and the city, because of course they were trying to cut their expenses, wanted the school board to take that on, and we just didn't want to take that on. And so the city is going to continue on with that, as my understanding. And those people won't get paid that much anyway, so it's not a big expense. So we do work with the city on a number of things. It's not a lot of things, but we do work with the city. We have, my understanding, is a very good relationship with the city. We don't give them any trouble, they don't give us any trouble.
I think Biff said it very well, that the time is here for, and we always looked at public safety as the first thing we look at in public works. Along the parks is between the two communities. Why do we have 2 fire chiefs, 2 police chiefs? There have been, actually our chiefs have spoke with Two Rivers, and it's, on the surface, it's like, yeah, that shouldn't be so bad, but when they really start delving into what it would take to do, it's a big task, and there's a lot to work through. They're set up quite differently, but it shouldn't keep us from still working towards finding some efficiencies. We've been in the business for a long time, or we go away, and we understand that. I think we have some good relationships with the school board, with the school district, as Mr. Crossman said, with the park sharing last year. In fact, the school decided to take care of the ball diamonds during the season. We can take care of them. We know the schedule of our teams, so they just took care of it. It wasn't a big thing. But there's a few parks that are out on Dewey Street that are, the school district owns property, and we have real good working relationships. I've never heard of any real butting heads, and if something does come up, generally we've been able to work through it, come to a decent agreement. The county, we do share some things with the county, not a lot. It's kind of the county gets the human services end of everything. They're in the people business, taking care of all those things, where the city, we're basically control the function of a big machine. Get a little bit more, where the county has to, and the schools are more in the people business. But I think we have good relationships. I don't really sense any, the old Two Rivers Manitowoc, rivalry. At least personally, we touch down. Our borders right there. You drift into Two Rivers. We have some things in common, Mariners Trail, but we have agreements that both the cities need to manage that together. And I think I'd be happy to work closer with Two Rivers. Being part-time evening officials, it's hard for us really to spearhead a big change like that. We need that to come from our employees a lot too. So.
Thank you. And if you touched on a good point, I'm a Michigan lifer, so the small towns and the villages. Can you expand a little bit on how you balance the needs or the requests or the wants of the small towns versus the bigger areas like Manitowoc and Two Rivers, and if you get a follow-up, if you do anything, or if there's any possibilities to share the Manitowoc or Two Rivers services or anything with Michigan or any other smaller villages in that area.
Actually, right now, there is cooperation going on that a lot of folks maybe don't see unless you are in that needed position, which you don't want to be in. Police and fire is a good example. There are current mutual aid agreements where when there are events, public safety events, fires, accidents, whatnot, maybe our fire department, which is smaller, is out on calls, and there's another EMS call that comes in. A process is set in place where Manitowoc responds with their personnel and their rigs. We just got done assisting MPU. I think it was in late fall. They were setting some new poles down Walpole Boulevard. They asked Two Rivers, can you send us a couple of guys? Those are things that really do go on. So there are levels of cooperation. There are efficiencies. When county was doing a little more road work, blacktopping, we also had some projects in Two Rivers, and they were there mobilized to do some county work. We needed some work that was right next door. One was near Highway O when you're going towards the beach. The other one was in front of our community house. They were already in the area doing work, so rather than mobilize another crew, it wasn't something we had to go out and bid because it wasn't above a level of dollars being spent. We said to the county, would you like to do that too? Of course they charge us, but they charge us a lot less. They charge us what it costs them to do the work. So there is that cooperation going on. And as when you talk about what's county's role within out in Michigan, sometimes we don't want to get caught in that either. Well, the lion's share of county taxes are paid by the two largest municipalities, and likewise we could say, geez, what are we getting for that money? But again, you have to look at the realm of services that the county is there to provide. So you can't kind of take that selfish look.
And I didn't want it to sound like we don't do things and share and work together, but I guess my idea is, I think we even have to go farther. I mean, it's time to start looking at how can we combine departments, like we did with the health department between the county and the city of Manitowoc. The city had their own health department, and now it's part of the county department, where you actually start looking at departments and say, can we create one? Metropolitan police force or countywide force. So it's not so much sharing services, but actually putting departments together to save the efficiencies of having one chief instead of 2, 7 miles apart or whatever. But when you asked about Michigan or Tisch Mills or Kiel or whatever, there's no magic answer. I really believe it's sitting down in that committee that we all serve on, or sitting down on the floor and actually listening when people say something from Michigan or Newton or outside and going, okay, what's best for everybody in the county? Not just my little 3,200 people that I represent in my district in the city of Manitowoc, but what is good for everybody. So in a sense, I'm going to benefit from that decision too. If we put this road out in Michigan and get it done because they're requesting it, I'm going to use that if I go to Fox Hills or some event out there, or if I go down to Newton, and I'm going to gain something as a city taxpayer for having good roads down in Newton or having services. This program or this health program that goes countywide and does different things. What's best for all of us? And as I said, when I started on the board, I didn't really care what happened outside of the Manitowoc city limits, but then all of a sudden you realize, hey, they're people too. They're proud of their place, and they want the best for their citizens, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, yeah, I do use that when I go to Michigan, or when I drive out to Gophers, or hey, that guy that works at Orion Energy, well, he lives out in Gophers, and he drives every day. You start realizing that you're not just representing those 3,200 people in your district. You have to make this a better place for everybody here to live. We have to remember that, and we're going to have some issues coming up, I'm sure, between cities and county, and we have to remember that it's just not Manitowoc, Two Rivers, Metropolitan. We pay a lot of the taxes, but there's 50% of them out there too that we have to make sure that what we do is good for them also.
Jason? I believe that if the cities succeed when the county succeeds, I think everybody enjoys success together. I don't think we can have a prosperous Manitowoc if Two Rivers is hurting or if Michigan is really struggling with something that I think, like Biff said, you know, the people in Michigan don't all work in Michigan. It's just kind of a regional thing, and whether it be the infrastructure of those streets and our county roads whether it's County D coming down to the Orion plant into Scana, that's a quality road feeding into the city that our freight is shipped out of. We all have an interest in. I think, and I personally, I believe that we are all in this together, and that is, we'll benefit, everybody will benefit from working together and having everyone succeed.
Well, I don't have a lot to say on it. The only thing, you know, in education, was really cutting and cutting and cutting. And you can get to the point where suddenly you are making it very difficult for people to do their work. And so this combined, for instance, around here, it's sometimes said, well, why do we have superintendents in all these little school districts? Why don't we just have a one county superintendent? And if you would do something like that, yes, you'd save a lot of money, perhaps, but then each school district would have to have somebody who would be like an assistant superintendent, and those jobs probably would be paid pretty well too. So sometimes you've got to look at all that stuff really hard, especially in this particular economic environment, where I think all of us have just really cut out as much as we can cut without, you know, really hurting services. I know in education, we're pretty much at the end of the line. I don't think we can do much more cutting. We're hoping the governor gives us, as he has more or less promised, that he's able to help us out a little bit more this year.
Let's,
and we'll see.
Yeah. Let's change speech for a bit. Let's go to your political careers. Your greatest challenge in your career so far, and what did you learn from it, and any advice to us or anyone else interested in getting into politics?
There's almost challenges every week, literally, or every month. Some of the biggest challenges, obviously, as we've all spoken to, are budget related. With limited and ever constant reducing resources, revenues, you still have to take care of streets. You still have to provide police protection, fire protection. You have to turn the lights on. I mean, there's a lot of services that we have to provide with limited resources. So that is a constant challenge. Beyond that, you know, our roles are as leaders to make the best decisions we can with what we have. I guess what I try to do in making a decision is what's going to have the biggest and most positive impact on most people. This is kind of a guiding principle for me. And you're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to make 50% of the people happy, and you're going to make the other 50% really upset. But you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at even laying groundwork for when all of us aren't going to be around, where you have the future political body say, boy, I'm really glad that group of folks did that or made that decision, versus the other way, future leaders saying, why in the heck did they do that? So, you know, our vision isn't just today, it's well beyond it in the future. And I'm sure we've all been in a position in our respective governments where we've had to deal with things and said, these decisions were made and they wouldn't have had to, but here's what we're dealing with now. And some of that is the lack of spending, the lack of putting forth some dollars and maintaining some infrastructure. Now at times we're paying for it. Those are challenges, continue to be challenges. But that shouldn't stifle somebody from wanting to get involved. You know, you read headlines, no offense, Charlie, but he's there to write a paper or work for a newspaper who wants people to buy the paper, wants people to read it. You read these sometimes really eye-catching headlines, and you're going to think, oh my God, why would I ever want to be involved in that? That can be somewhat of a detractor, but that's only a small portion. And that's Charlie's job, and that's what the paper's there to do, they're to report. And I have to say, for the most part, they're fair, they give both sides. But you can't let that, prevent you from wanting to get involved. Talk to anybody who's elected and really ask them, what do you do? Why would I want to do this? Why should I get involved? And I think you might say wrong, because it's not really up there. But you can't be scared from the challenges. We all have challenges in life. I mean, in your personal life, they're the same challenges governments face, but maybe on a little bit bigger scale, but affect quite a few more people. We need people to sit where we sit. We're not going to be wrong there.
The biggest challenges have been, of course, budget related. It's been a very difficult. We were, city manager at the time I came in. I came at the same time as Mayor Nichols. We thought everything was. We had a vision that things were much better than what they were. Wasn't. Some things were in my view, careless spending over the decade that preceded. Another thing was just that the economy slowed so badly. We lost things like Anheuser-Busch. We lost some really great revenue streams. Just a lot of things happened all at the same time. So then it became an issue of trying to continue to be a good employer, trying to provide the services, the essential services that the community needs, but also not let the city fall apart. Because that street that may take $200,000 to resurface this year, if you let it go for too many years, next thing you know, the water seeps through, the water it's under, now we have to do the whole thing. Next thing, in a couple of years, it costs you 3 times that to replace it. So trying to figure and spend that money in the best way possible, but on very limited budget. So financially has been the biggest thing. A lot of times it's the perception that the city council got a lot a couple of years ago that we don't get along, or there's very contentious always. And a lot of that people would see when we would argue an issue, but when we meet at council, like last night, I think every vote we had was unanimous except for one, and there was one dissent. But when we do have something that we debate it passionately, and I would want my elected official to care. And it's difficult because people say, well, why can't you compromise? Well, you need to compromise together. But then you say, my constituents, when I went out and talked to people in voting for me, I said, this is the way I plan to vote and plan to govern on these principles. So if compromise means I have to go back on my principles that I promised to those people by representing them. So we do. We have passionate base. We have a lot of people are set in their ways. I'm probably one of the worst on our council. But at the end of the night, we'll often go over to Legend Larry's after and have wings and a beer and really enjoy each other's company. So I do think people get the misconception that we don't get along and that it's really contentious, but we're just being passionate, and I think we owe that to the people that have voted for us. So it's very rewarding to me. I truly enjoy what I do, and I would encourage people to do it. I'm disappointed that right now we have 5 people that are up for election this year. One served not even a full term, is not running again. There will be a primary for his seat, and there's only one other contested seat, so there's 3 of us running on the post. One of our other people has run on the post three times in a row. No one's ever run against her, and she's done a great job. But you'd like to see more people have an interest in it, and it's very rewarding. And it's like we said, it's not as bad as you may think it is. We have a lot of quality people, and I can speak to the city manager that I go to for my information, whether they come from our public infrastructure department or the finance office, the attorney's office. I have quality people that I go to for information, to try and make the most informed decisions I can. So it's a great learning experience, and it's very rewarding, and I would encourage anyone.
So you would rather run against another person rather than opposed?
I was having run for the assembly last year, and I didn't want another campaign this year because I ran opposed my 2 times prior.
Okay.
But I'd like to see that, yeah, it's not just, people won't pay attention. Well, this is my first, I was relieved, and I sat and watched, and I'm like, okay, well, you gotta get email every time someone files nomination papers. It's like, oh, not me. And I'll think, okay, that's it, it's 5 o'clock, it's over. But I would like to see people have more of an interest in their communities. Local politics has more effect on people than what they realize. And the way we spend your money, everyone at this table, and the decisions we make affect people way more. Everybody gets excited about a presidential election or something like that. It's like, it's got an impact on what happens down in this room here, or Lindbergh Drive, or down at Quay Street, have a huge effect on people. So I can see more involvement.
Thank you. Jim, great.
Yeah, as I said, when I got elected, the first thing I learned, and I learned it kind of in a good way, you need the votes to win. If the votes aren't on your side, forget it, you're not going to do anything. The second thing I think that I became aware of is, in order to make really good decisions, you really do have to be highly informed. And the trouble is, sometimes you think you are highly informed, but in fact, you aren't as well informed as you should be, because you want to make good decisions. We just had to hire a superintendent. That's the most important thing that we do, because he or she runs the district. And there's a lot of nervousness there, because you perhaps remember that about 10 years ago, or not 10 years, about 9 years ago, we hired, I came in on the end of that, but we hired a superintendent that ultimately had to let go. And that's kind of traumatic. It's traumatic for us, it's traumatic for the city, it certainly was for the school district. And we don't ever want that to happen again, but it does happen around the state, where school districts hire a superintendent, and after 1 or 2 years, you can't live with them or her, and you have to go through the expense. It's very expensive to let these people go, because they have 3-year contracts that you usually end up having to honor. So that's one of my big concerns. I want to make a really good decision. I think we can make a good decision in who we hire, and I think this community is going to be very proud. And one of the things is, nobody has called me and said, why did we hire her? There was not a single call. So then I sort of think, man, we did the right job. Sometimes we get a complaint or two, and like a board member said, well, I had a complaint about something, so therefore I'm reconsidering upon voting on. Okay, but you're representing thousands of people. One person complained. That's one person that has complained, and you can't allow for what I would sometimes call the tyranny of that sort of thing, where two people complain. Therefore, I've got to change my mind on something here, or maybe I should change my mind, because there are a lot of people who agree with what you're doing, but they don't call you. So that's important. Another thing that's really important, the newspaper has done a very good job for us in getting out our stories. But what I have found out is important to get out our stories, especially our important stories, where we give all the facts that were involved in the decision that we had to make. Because sometimes when we were a little careless about that, then the story's written up, leaving out something that we think should be in there. But we didn't supply that information to the person who was there to do the story. So it's very important that they get all the facts. For instance, the one thing that was controversial was the amount of money we'll be paying our superintendent of schools under her contract, which is a lot more than we paid Mark. But everywhere we went, every expert we talked to, you're not getting anybody for that price. You're not, for what we paid Mark. You're not getting anybody for that, because that's the going rate. But we gave the newspaper the comparables that we were looking at. They published the comparables, and I think they said, "Oh my goodness, this amount of money, that made the story easier for them to understand why we made the decision that we had. If we had put that into that story, or if they decided not to publish it, then they would just see that number and would see by Manwalk standards kind of high for them. So it's important to get the whole story out there when you make a decision, all the things that you, especially your board decisions, all the things that went into your decision making, so that the public can understand the decision and not get hot about something because they don't know all the facts.
Laying people off, cutting staff. And I think, for me personally, the thing that has bothered me the most about politics recently is what we see at the state level and the national level. I don't see as much of it here, but the hatred between the two sides. Somebody gets elected and wins an election, and people get together and want to stop that person from doing anything that he or she can, just because they're the opposition party. And I'm going to disagree with Alderman Sladke a little bit. I think compromise is a good thing. I think one of the things that's destroying us right now is we don't listen to the other side and give and take. It's not a secret that the county executive and I disagree on a lot of issues. He's of one persuasion, I'm of the other, but when we discussed the recent budget with the information that we were provided, I compromised a lot of my feelings and voted for that county budget and voted for some of the things we had to do personnel-wise. And he compromised also. And compromise shouldn't be that bad word that I think it's become in the last 10, 15 years in this country. I don't think we're going to get back to those good days of making progress and getting us rolling in the right direction unless both sides look at each other and go, okay, where's the middle here? What can we do? What's good for everybody? Or can I get a little piece of what I want so we can move forward? And maybe I lose something, but at least I'm going in the right direction. And right now, I mean, you look at Washington and it's gridlock. How insane is it that you need 60 votes in the Senate to pass anything? Somebody changed the rules. I thought it was majority, but it's not anymore. But both sides do it. Both sides gerrymander districts so they keep power. And we've gotten to this point where power is more important than what's good for people. And that to me is the worst part about this job. But the best part is by running and getting elected, you can change that. At least I think we're making changes here. I don't know the other three gentlemen's groups as well as I know my own, but I think at the county level, we've learned to compromise with each other. We've learned to make some decisions. When I set up some committees, I purposely set them up so you didn't know how that committee was going to vote. Our personnel committee is great because it's really 5 votes and who knows what's going to happen when they start discussing. And I think that's a good thing, rather than put committees together where you know what's going to happen when they start voting. And Supervisor Benke, who's the chair of that committee, he's got his hands full, but he runs it well. And they sit down and they compromise and they put things together. So that's a good thing. And I think we have to get back to those days where you feel comfortable going out after a meeting and having wings and a beverage. They used to do that in Madison. Vern Holzbach, who's down there for years, talks about when they would go out and some of the legislation got done sitting at the Capitol bar talking about it with people from the other party. Now they're told not to do that. Don't mingle, don't talk to the other side. And that's what's wrong with this place. I mean, that's why that's why you read newspapers and of statewide elections and national elections in the House and the Senate and the Assembly and the State Senate and the governor, and it's not what it should be. You get elected to do things, and that's not happening. But I think it might happen here. At least we're trying to. So get involved into it.
And I'm going to take a quick break for my questions and open it up if anyone has any questions or comments for these gentlemen.
I have a think all of you touched on not only compromise, but becoming educated. You're making decisions constantly that affect the community, that affect people's lives. What do you do personally to make sure that you are informed to make those educated decisions on both sides?
I read a lot. We get provided with plenty of backup information when we're looking at issues. I know more about the differences between Portland cement and blacktop than anybody would ever care to know about. But it's extremely important when you're about to lay out a $200,000 project, because you want to know everything you can about something that I guess we take for granted because we just drive over it. But it's going to cost you a lot of money. And I want people after we're gone to still be able to drive on that road that you spent $200,000 on, so they don't have to. So there's just a wealth of information out there that you're provided. And then, as Jason touched, there are staff members there who are very educated. They're a great resource to ask those questions, to go to them. You know, you might see sensationalization sometime at a meeting with, and I'm not saying it's any of ours, but all of a sudden somebody's going to grandstand, whether it's for their ego or for a camera, and start hollering and shouting when they should have prepared, they should have gotten that information prior to. So when they're at that meeting, they have that knowledge. It's a lot of reading. It really is. That's probably what I spend my most time on. And it's not just necessarily what we're provided. We're, Two Rivers, we're a member of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. We get a lot of mailings from them, emails, on issues that are going on in other communities, things that they've done, ordinances that they've set up. So again, but it's up to the individual how informed they want to be. I can't, nor anybody can control a fellow alder or council person, school board member, county board member. You can encourage them. We get a lot of information. You put the effort in. It's how much you want to put into it.
Research the other side. When they give you information, then always check to see what the other side says, because people always give you what they want you to read. So really fine, call people, say, hey, I'm hearing this, can you give me the other side of that? And then you make a decision based on who you are.
That's really important. I still, we do get information, you get your packet. That is sent to you a week before the meeting, you go through that material, and then we're encouraged to make calls. People, for instance, if it's a budget question, people about budget, we call Ken Minister, and there are other people that we can call and ask about. And also, I do know certain teachers, not so many anymore, that are still working in the district, and when I run into them, I'll ask them, is it an important issue, I think, for, say, teams, for staff, let's say. And I'll say, what are you hearing about this? And, maybe get another opinion, maybe not. Because when you do, you never want to make a decision and then find out there was a piece of information out there that you didn't have that would have changed the way you voted or might have changed the way you voted. And especially when you're making these decisions that was talking about, as we had to the school district about bringing people along, freezing salaries and things like that, but you just want to know everything you possibly can. You want to know where every nickel is, exactly what we have, to limit the amount of hurt that is going to be caused by those decisions.
Reading is the biggest thing, and we're supplied. I don't know how many have ever dealt with our city planner. Dave Bless will provide for everything there is. We have an extremely knowledgeable and thorough planner that provides you information. That we do, and and you have to pay attention to everything that's going on. From our packets, you have to be. I've often had to call Bob Ziegelbauer, Joe Leibbaum, and find out about state issues and how they affect what's happening in Manitowoc, whether it's stormwater issues, things like that. And for just trying to get as much information, counting on your people, that your internal people hopefully are mistakes are made sometimes on our part, on the information that's given to us may be flawed. We've had issues when something comes up, you have to work through it. We can't just throw up our hands. The mistake's been made, now we need to fix it. But trying to be as informed and really putting forth the effort, asking the questions. You get out of this job what you put into it. There are people that I know that are still on our council now that show up at council night and cruise through their things, and that's the end of their effort. I was at City Hall at by 4:45 yesterday. My first meeting wasn't until 5 o'clock. I wanted to make sure I had everything from my council prayer was ready to go to everything. I believe when the voters put you in that position, that you need to make sure that you give them their 100%. And research it everywhere you can. From the League of Municipalities, I've called and talked with their attorneys when I was skeptical of what our attorney gave us for information. So the information's out there. Sometimes you have to dig a little farther. Understanding what you're doing.
Any more questions?
I have a question, kind of more on a personal level. What's the average age of the people serving on your board or council? And my impression has been that it seems like a little bit older. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering why you think that is. And the other side of that is, how do you balance having a family and a personal life and a work life? I mean, you guys all are, employed. How do you balance that with what's required of you by all these, meetings that you have to attend and everything else? So I'm curious, how do you balance that?
I can jump on that right away because we do have that issue on the board. And one of the first things you got to realize when you run is that you're going to have certain obligations. When are the meetings? Can I make these meetings? For instance, we meet the second every Tuesday night. You can't have another commitment that night and say, well, can we change our meetings? We're not changing our meeting dates. You're not going to change your meeting dates. You're not going to change it. Those dates are set. And that does restrict some people. They can't make the meeting dates. And then, but the conflict, but sometimes corporate committees and things like that, it's kind of hard to get people together because that's the committee members decide what they're doing. And we do find that sometimes it's really hard to get people together because of their busy lives. And some of the young women that have children, they're going off, we have a woman on there right now with 3 active kids in school. They're all doing things all the time. And she wants to go to as many of those events as possible. As far as age goes, right after before I came on the board, we had Tony Dufek was elected. He was 80. He was the oldest guy we had on the board. And I don't know what the average age is, but it's probably, it probably could be 60, I would think, or close to, I'm not sure. Maybe in the 50s someplace, I would say. And Lee Brownell was senior. So, yeah, maybe we are a little old, but you know what it is? A lot of us, kids are out of the house, maybe retired.
It's City Manitowoc Council. I'm kind of cruising through everything here. The age has dropped quite a bit on the Manitowoc Council over the past few years. So I would say, I'm guessing our average is probably low 40s. So that's the Manitowoc. I think our oldest person is probably, about 48. So I'm guessing.
You guys are the youngest by far.
So we're a bunch of young whippersnappers keeping the peace in the family, giving up golf. I used to play league golf. I used to play golf 3 times a week, and I lived through my first term and said to my wife, I said, if I'm elected, it's got to go, because I have a 13-year-old and an almost 10-year-old. So yeah, the personal time, it's difficult. You need a spouse that's willing to put up with it. That's for sure. And I'm blessed with that. And trying to keep politics out of the house and the kids, because I remember 2 years ago the hardest thing was when my daughter had to go over to the bus stop and there was a sign for my opponent there. at the house where she had to wait for, and that bothered her, and I knew it, and I'm like, don't worry about it, it's okay, and, you know, but trying to keep kids out of that is a big thing, and trying not to let stuff get personal, and not dwelling on it, trying to, when you are home, the email goes away when you're doing homework with your kids, you don't interrupt, you let it go to voicemail, take care of it later in the morning, so. But it is a challenge with young kids. You're gonna need a spouse that's gonna put up with it, for sure.
We're a little older on our council. There's only a couple who are in their 30s. We have then a few who are 70 to 80. And actually, one of the fellows who's not going to come back is 80, and he literally said, you know, I really love it. This is one of my best years on council. He said, but I think I'll be dead. He said. So, you know, we are a little older, but it's a great, our group is, we have a really good, lot of diversity from age and to male to female ratio. Right now we have 3 female council members out of 9, and they say they're going to take over. So, and everything will get done quicker is what they're saying. They may be right. The balancing act is a challenge. My work life is very busy. I literally work 7 days a week with my job. But this is a great diversion. I guess you can look at it that way. To me, this completely pulls me out of my work life. I can completely forget it. Not that I don't enjoy my job or jobs. I can completely forget about all of that for the entire time I'm working on our city business. I find it a great diversion. Right now my kids are older, gone, but because I've been involved for many years, they were younger. And you know, at times you do miss some things, but that's a dedication or a commitment you have to decide if you're going to make, and that is something that you have to think through. On the other side of the coin, I think you teach your kids, if you have kids, some great responsibilities. You know, they look at you and they see what you're doing. I think I wouldn't be surprised with folks who are elected locally and have kids. I do see them a little more involved in their community and some volunteering efforts, and maybe in the future stepping into the role that we've played. I think, you know, it provides a great role model for not just our own kids, but other kids, their friends. And you can't let the pot shots at you. It's going to stay in the beginning. You know, you're going to be hurt. You don't like anybody hearing anything bad, or you don't like hearing something that somebody said that's negative towards you. But again, like I said earlier, you're not going to make everybody happy. You're going to be sitting in a room at times with 20 people there staring you in the eye, and we're going to be darn mad when you make that decision. But guess what? You got to look at them and say, this is the decision we're making. And you know, everybody moves on. That's the biggest thing I've learned in all the years I've been involved. I used to like to argue. And it'd be, I don't understand what's wrong with these people. Why can't they see it my way? Because I'm right. I'm always right. But you know what? Everybody, you learn and you hear things from other folks you serve with and say, boy, I never thought of that. And you do really have to step back and listen. And a lot of personal satisfaction. A lot. You have to decide if you can make that time commitment or not. Because to do the position justice, to do justice to those who elected you, you have to make that commitment. And if you can, you know, that's probably the biggest thing you need to think through.
I would say the county board is probably the oldest group.
You and Two Rivers. Probably low 60s. Sure. I think it's older than that.
And maybe that's just the nature of people being elected from all over the county. I don't know as far as the time. Is it better to be at a meeting doing something for your community or sitting in front of a TV set at night, blowing away 2 or 3 hours watching, you know, Survivor or The Bachelor? I mean, when you think of how much time we can waste on those kind of things, if you can give up a couple hours a week to serve your community, I think that's worth it. I think Lee made some good points that you know, if you step into this arena, you're going to take some pot shots. People are going to say nasty things about you. It used to bother me about blogs and message boards and posts until you realize that that's just a small group of people who live in their community reading it and writing that junk.
And I won. Took me 7 tries.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know.
We used to allow people to post anonymously.
Yeah.
And I was constantly saying, no, come on, let's make people, you know, so I respected the William Hanmoses and the Bill Springers and those who at least would post with their real name and not Crusher, NC.
Or, you know, calling shows, they're going to take shots at you. But those aren't the people that count. The people that count are the ones that will send you a card if you make a tough choice, and even though they disagree, respect you for doing that. You know, the people that come up to you, some people get bothered when people come up to them at restaurants or when you're at a bar and they start talking about stuff, but most of those people, when they look you in the eye, are respectful. They may disagree with you, but very few times I've been out, somebody has come up and started going after me. Because it takes a little bit more to sit and actually disagree with somebody personally. And we were talking about that before, that we gotta get back. We may not agree, but at least talk civilly to each other. I think that's part of the reward. I agree with the fact, I think it's probably helped my kids a little bit to see that and read those things and understand that I do this for the community. I think it's made them better kids. Probably their mom made them better kids more than anything else. But, you know, they understand that time being gone because you're doing something good. If I was out doing something else, maybe they'd be regretful about it. But I never heard that from them. And you just make family time, like Alderman Slatke said, you make that family time, and it doesn't matter, nothing else gets in that way. So is it a balancing act? Yeah, but when you really look at your life, how much time do you just blow doing stupid stuff?
I guess I got a question. And if you did a much better job selling your job than Jason, it says you have to give up golf if you want to. I'm allowed. But then I'm always nervous for Charlie, and then my quote candid question. But I guess you all alluded to your life outside of your positions here. But and I know for most of you, with you in your day job, how does that? What do you do in your day job, and how does that affect your views and your positions in public service?
I have the best day job in the world.
I don't know. We might argue.
I don't know. I work with 1,200 kids that keep me young, even though I'm old. And even the kids who are a pain in the butt sometimes, some of them teach me lessons that I could never learn any other way. For Leah to escape to go to one of those meetings, I escape the meetings by going to work. And I really do. And it's, kids will ask me questions. They'll read something in the paper or hear something in the news, and they'll ask me about that, or people I work with, and that's part That's a good thing about this job too, is that you get to explain those issues that we all have. You get to explain those with people in the community. And in my case, I get to, you know, I'm with a lot of people during the day. And in informal situations, so kids will come up and ask, or teachers will ask, or other people will do it for that. So that's another way to get the worthwhile government out. But being Claude Zock isn't bad at all. I like it. For those that knew Claude, he was the assistant principal at Lincoln when I was in high school.
I'm retired, so, you know, I don't have to balance anything here. I do teach some classes through the University Extension, but I don't do a lot of that anymore, so, I don't have any conflicts or anything like that I have to deal with.
I'm a plumber by trade, so I'm, like I said, I'm fortunate I've got an employer that's tolerant and lets me make up my time and make kind of crazy hours because I'm able to make an 8-time meeting if there's something that comes up that I have to make. Phone calls, emails, checking that stuff during the day. So it kind of amazes me how everything always works out. You get in the middle of something, you get it all tore apart, and I've got to be home, showered, and out of Carhartts, and into a shirt and tie by 5 o'clock, and I have to be there. But in 4 years, I've never missed a standing committee meeting or a council meeting. So I've always managed to get it done somehow. It's amazing when your feet are really put to the fire, you seem to get it done. But yeah, it does. Yeah, it conflicts, you know, a lot of times during the day. But like I said, I have some flexibility with my work, so I'm able to. I'm fortunate that I've been able to take care of. But it doesn't have to either. If you didn't have that flexibility, we have people that they're out of town, they work out of town, they're gone, they're out of touch for the day. Or you know, Oliver Rye, he works in a building. He's got lunch. That's it. Their phones don't even work inside his workplace, so he's out of touch all day long. But you have to be creative and make it work. I think pretty much everybody does come into a system that works, or they serve one term and then leave. So that doesn't work.
I do have a very tolerant employer.
That's something that we agree with.
Social necessary.
Yeah.
The other side of that, though, is I do have 2 businesses that are completely customer service related. I rely on customers coming through my door to not only pay my employees, but also to pay me. And obviously that can be very scary to a degree for somebody who owns a business and relies on it, because, like I said, I'm going to make decisions that are going to make you mad. And unfortunately, some people will equate that to the great product or service that a business person provides, and they'll say, well, I'm not going in there now because they made that decision. It happens. That's a reality. It's just happened recently, and not that decisions are being made that are even bad. We're just following, in fairness, some issues right now. And I've had people say, that's it, I'm boycotting. You know, that's unfortunate. I wouldn't let that, though, keep me away from doing what I need to do as an elected official, because if I'm in my business providing a great service, a great product, that's why you're coming in. You're coming in there to purchase what I sell, not to because of what I said. You know, that's me doing what I do there is secondary to my business. So unfortunately, it does happen. My accountant weighed in the beginning and said, "Are you sure this is politics? Is something you want to do?" I told him at that point, I'd been involved for a while. I said, the people that don't like me don't like me. I'm not going to change their mind, and they're probably not coming in here anyway. So, you know, that hasn't been a great fear. It's unfortunate that people have to feel like that, because there are elected people who are out in our community, some on the school board or other businesses that have a business. I don't agree with them, but I like their product. I like what they do. So that's the only balancing act as far as I sometimes affects me, but I can't let it get in my way of my responsibilities as a councilman.
I was thinking you got the added pulse of the community right there at the bar. You know,
Well,
you
here-
always got here.
Here's a funny story. It happened just yesterday. We did have an issue that we were dealing with on our agenda for the meeting, and it was approving a resolution that something called, we did a blight study, determine the blight area of our city. Really what that does is set in motion for us to apply for a community development block grant. We identified an area of our harbor area in Two Rivers, and we had to determine this area and homes and properties that are blighted. It sounds like a really nasty word. How would you like to say your property has been determined to be blighted? You know, you're going to be wild, and you should. But we did some great communication within these boundaries to let people know this is what this is. This is what determines something to be a blight. Really what we were targeting was our harbor seawall. We need to replace that. We're going to be doing some dredging. So this is a way for us to tap some money, and we had to go through this process. Somebody didn't read what they were sent in the mail, which is not, you can send a lot of information out there, and folks are just going to kind of shove that away, and they're not going to read it, and then all of a sudden when decision night's coming, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I live above one of my restaurants. I always leave and I'm not open there on Monday and Tuesday. I was home yesterday afternoon. As Vic would say, I wasn't doing anything real, I was wasting some time, I guess, on my couch with my little chihuahua, and but then I leave that back door open, not the front business door, and I'm sitting, wasting time, and I hear, Lee, I know you're up there. It's Two Rivers, you know, and that's why I love that community. People walk right in my place and holler for me. They see that my truck was there, so they know I'm there. And, you know, to me that was not a bother. That was very, very rewarding. That one, they knew they could just come walk right in, and secondly, I was able to give them their answers. So it's a neat job for us to have. It really is. Just walk right in. I suppose they could have went and grabbed a beer if they wanted.
I'll ask a bunch before I go to Hope House, which I'm a town Hope House. If you're not involved in an elective office, and got less of a commitment is Hope House. That's the homeless shelter and the kind of position, and what I do every 6 weeks, then they have trouble filling it, is overnight host. For some reason, most churches, including mine, have trouble filling overnight host. But you don't have to be affiliated with a church to volunteer. I'll be there by 10 minutes to 8, and I'll interact with a bunch of screaming little kids for probably an hour and a half until their moms think they're so tired they're going to roll in bed. And then by 10:30, I'll be asleep. I'll wake up at 6 o'clock and go off to work. And so I've just been a strong supporter of Hope House from the beginning and consider it a gift. Anyway, okay, let's see how quick I can do some of these, and maybe some of these are going to be fairly quick. In 2000, I interviewed 12 years ago, I interviewed the assistant Hmong Community Center. It wasn't called that at that time. It was Lakeshore Indo-Chinese Mutual Assistance Association, and basically said in 2000 that, and what prompted me to go there was that Wausau 7-member council had just had their 3rd person of Hmong heritage elected to their city council, 3 out of 7. And so it's 2000, and there had not been a single Hispanic, African American, or person of Hmong heritage who had ever been on any school board, any council, any county board, ever in this county. That was in 2000. Except for Mr. Revelis, who apparently has got a free ticket onto the Two Rivers City Council. That's so one. How come? Any ideas as to why? Because you talked about diversity, and I thought, what diversity? Just a bunch of older white folks. Any idea why there's 0 ethnic diversity ever on our councils or boards?
There's almost 0 white people who run from year to year.
True. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, what the percentage of people of any race, gender, creed that run for office is pretty low, so I would welcome it. I would think that the Hmong community that I deal with them in my work quite a bit, actually, at the Hmong Community Center that they're calling right now. I don't have a good answer. I think Sheboygan had or may have one, but I'm a bit surprised that they don't.
I think, we're talking about this a little bit. I think as an area, as communities, we need to grow. Manitowoc and Two Rivers, those of us that have been here forever, are the same communities they were in 1960. With 30,000 people in Manitowoc and about 10,000 to 12,000 in Two Rivers. And we have grown and changed like Appleton and Sheboygan and Blue Bay. And I don't know why that is, but we start growing and then Miro shuts down, or we start growing and somebody scales back, and we get stuck into this. We need to become more dynamic so people move here and we become a little different than we are. We're a little stagnant right now. We're stagnant in the way we do things, and that means we elect old white guys to councils. It's sad because there's so many talented people out there that I wish would step forward and do that, but it's kind of our tradition here is, Biff's an old white guy, I'll vote for him. You know?
And we like the way he's hanging out of time, which you need to get your band back in.
Yeah, right. But, you know, I just think it'd be nice if I don't know how we capture that spirit. I don't know what we can do to get us growing and changing and moving forward that way.
Okay. Shifting gears completely. One of the things I always point out verbally, and I'll be pointing out in this story, is that it'd be tough to know exactly, but certainly more than 99% of the elected offices in this country, you don't have an R or a D after your name. It's only state legislatures and Congress. That's it. City councils across the country, county boards, don't run as R&D. I would think that's one of the great things about serving in your kind of, you don't have to worry about, and I'll be curious to talk to Paul Tittle in a couple of months. I doubt if he'll be honest with me, but I'll try to pin Paul down as to, so what votes did you cast in these first 3 months that maybe you didn't want to, but you got told by your Republican bosses, freshman Boyd Paul, that you were going to cast? But the specific question is, Tom Frieder served on the Manitowoc City Council for about 18 years. And he said to me, in contrast to probably what happens in Congress or in Madison, I never traded one vote with any other city councilman, ever. Every single issue was decided on its merits. I never formed a coalition. I never traded votes. Can you guys make that easy for me?
If you ever even think of it, you got to, the only way if somebody changes their vote or they get respectful, you got to try to persuade that person with your arguments. And sometimes it works.
I think by and large, we don't have people running for a reason like that. You run because you want to serve the community. We might be different, progressive, conservative, Tea Party, liberal. We might be different that way, but when you vote on an issue, you vote for the good of the people that you represent, because you know what? I know you. You live next door to me. I know her. She lives down the block. So I've got to be able to look you in the face, and I don't know if I could do that if I traded my vote with somebody.
And we don't have political bosses.
Yeah.
They come around and
We don't have caucusing. That's a big problem we have in Madison. Is we're not allowed to get together and work things out behind closed doors. In Madison, they are. They're able to get together in their groups and to pressure people where you can't be pressured. Where you're pressured, well, I shouldn't say you can't be pressured, you're on the council floor, you're pressured. You're given an argument, you're given what somebody believes in, but yeah, to actually trade a vote, no, I would, and I disagree with everybody on the council, I would agree with everybody on the council, so I'm pretty secure that I'm my own person, so I can't imagine ever doing that.
Switching gears again, when Lee Broker runs for the Two Rivers City Council, he has to get 200 signatures. When Biff Hansen ran around at that moment getting signatures so he could run for Manitowoc City Council. He only had to get 20. You think it would make a difference in attracting more candidates if the number of signatures required to run was lower?
Big challenge, you know, that's the unfortunate consequence of a city manager council form of government. Our signature requirement is, because we have that form of government, we serve at large, 200 signatures of eligible voters of our city. You have 1 month to do it. Obviously, the month to do that is the month of December, so pretty busy month for people in general. So huge challenge. I know that has detracted from folks running, but myself and another council member every year encourages folks to run, starting towards the end of November, using some social media tactics to try to get a group together who's interested. It could be 3 people, and then at that point we tell them it's really not that difficult to get the 200 signatures because you network. Just with the 3 people who are running, share papers. You know, if you can go to each one and say, if you could get me 20 signatures, I mean, it can be done, but it does seem like a challenge, especially when you're new. This is your first election, your first try at it, and then that's your first hurdle. You know, so if you have folks who are elected who can encourage and share ways of making it easier, that's our responsibility. So,
what's county board requirement? 20 signatures. And Jim, what is it for school board?
0.
0? You just have to indicate your intent to run.
Hey, it's not getting paid. People aren't
No,
out the door.
Yeah, correct. Well, and that opens the door, Jason, to ask, do you think it would make a difference if, in terms of attracting candidates, if you guys got paid?
I think there might be some people, not because you're going to enrich yourself. I only talked to one woman on the subject. She wanted to run, but she said I would have to have a babysitter. And that's going to cost babysitters, in case those of you that don't have any children, are extremely expensive. I cannot believe how much that's going up since, we didn't have no kids. And I don't know, I'm running for the first time too, and the form we had to fill out this year was quite a bit different from the form we filled out in the past.
Like financial interest and disclosure?
I had to go to the bank and get my account numbers and the whole works, and I wasn't very happy with that. They want your account numbers, your checking account number, you got a box there, a safe deposit box, they wanted that.
I could see them asking what holdings you might have to avoid conflict of interest on contract awarding, but I don't know why they want that.
For council, we need to check, because you're a campaign, what account that you're using as a campaign account.
They just
Whether you do any activity with it or not.
Yeah, they want to be able to, and the thing would be so easy to defeat. What if I have 2 banks or 3 banks? I mean,
But all you're supposed to use that's supposed to be your campaign account.
but anyway, you're doing a little more prying, which bothered me.
So I'd be curious to know how the chairman of the county board reacted when he saw State Representative Frank Lassay call you guys out in his editorial and say you're not protecting the health and welfare of the county citizens if you don't do a wind turbine moratorium.
I think we're protecting the citizens of this county by checking all the information before we call for a moratorium, rather than reading one report and calling for a moratorium. As I said before, we're checking all the information, getting the other side of the study, rather than just reacting as the state senator and state representative from that area did.
That was a very politically worded statement.
I think you prepared for that one.
No, I didn't. I
should know what I'm talking about, don't you?
No, I don't read this stuff because it just gets me angry, but there's one study done by 4 different people. Depending what side of that issue you're on, your answer is in that study. It's not as clear cut as Mr. Jacques
let's say,
and Lassay think it is. So my suggestion to them would be read the study and get information from both sides.
But I'll take my reporter hat off and
Yeah.
say, why would you, if you live in the Shirley-Glenmore area, why would you leave your home and go double mortgage or go into a rental unit and leave your house if the health effects of those turbines were real? That
And you draw completely the cause of your health effects to those turbines. Those things are all over the world. They're all over the
well,
world.
that's why setbacks and how far apart they are is so.
There are people that coal plant down the beach here are going to say the same thing about being far away from that coal plant. There are people that will say the same thing about the nuclear plants. There are people that will say the same thing about hydroelectric plants or any other power plant. So until there is clear science that draws a cause from that turbine to that illness, I don't think we should be talking about moratorium.
So open up the power lines, anybody who lives underneath the power line.
It's the same thing. The world,
I guess I'm just looking at it as, why would I move out of my house unless I was truly being impacted? And if I was in Shirley-Glenmore, I was there first. It's not like somebody can say, well, you moved in, after those turbines went up, and if you didn't do your research to see what the effect on you might be, shame on you for moving into the area.
and I was at that high school before they put the addition on of the power plant. And they put it on, and I was at that high school, and I was working, I was a student there, and they put that addition on, and that may hurt my health as much as that wind turbine.
Oh, maybe that's a story we haven't done. Are people those educated?
I'm just saying.
The coal plant gas affected people's health.
You want articles, I will give you environmental groups that'll tell you that coal plant is as dangerous as a wind turbine.
In terms of breathing in?
Breathing in the mercury that falls out of the sky. I will tell you people that will talk about the tritium in the well water underneath Point Beach and Key Wani. And if you want somebody to give you health effects of something, there is a report out there that will say that that is. So I'm just saying, let's wait and let's get a study and let's look at it before we have moratoriums all over the place. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at it and studying.
Okay. And what I won't do is say to you folks, how come you never show up at budget hearings? Because that's not fair. Nobody shows up at budget hearings. Not just younger folks.
$9 million. $9 million budget for a little city of Two Rivers, tax support.
And nobody shows. And $25 million for Manitowoc, and nobody shows. And $28 million for the county, and nobody.
There are certain expectations. Now, for instance, if the school board would say, okay, we're thinking of raising taxes 10%, people would show up.
So you think it's really just that?
Yeah.
It's a modest or flat
It's
tax?
sort of like, everything's going okay, so I'm not going to pay that much attention to it.
Yeah.
And there are an enormous number of people who don't understand budgets. You hand out a book and my God, they don't read.
But my city taxes went up 11% last year. I didn't go to that budget meeting because you know what? He's not going to raise my taxes 11% unless he really has to. You know, I trust that guy because I know him and I can call him. Okay? Now, if it goes up another 11% this year, then he's out of office. Right? But I hope that's the reason that people trust what we're doing, and that's why we don't have 30, 40 people at every budget hearing. And if we weren't doing a good job, then we would have those people.
Try and put in a men's homeless shelter, conditional use permit.
And then we get 120 in that
Right.
room.
Yeah, then we have fire capacity. Try and, I announced last night that we'll be discussing the roundabouts and going on record supporting the Waldo reconstruction roundabout at the east and the roundabout at the west.
I don't think you're going to get much opposition to that.
But the west one, from what I hear on the radio, everybody's telling me about the west one.
I think people have gotten used to them out on 310. They've gotten used to them on 10.
But I think they cause me
41.
health concerns.
Charlie, this is going 2 lanes.
I'm sure there's a study
The whole new world.
As long as a study has shown that people will believe it.
Look, kids, you can.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I would encourage is if next year you do this very same thing, but maybe do November. So, you know, then what we could do is, I could maybe put more pressure on all you guys and say, here's the deal, and here's what we need to do if you're interested in running. You know, if we can get it closer to that time, maybe I can get a couple of you guys to step up.
Well, we only did it in December, so we were a month late.
And Lee's gonna provide free pizza.
Sure, what the heck, yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, guys. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Charlie, I got a question for you.
Sure.
This is kind of a little